Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. The year is 1973. Man has been to the moon. Rock and roll sweeps the world. Endo Kenji is 12 years old, and he and his friends dream of the days they will grow up. They will become explorers, astronauts, world-famous electric guitarists. They while away the summer hours in a little fort made of grass in an empty lot. They read comic books. They tell jokes. They give each other a hard time. They write their dreams for the future down in a little notebook that they bury, sure that they will come back and find it when they're super cool adults. And they rehearse for the day when, on the eve of the year 2000, when calamity threatens the world, they rise up to rescue it from danger, evermore to be remembered as brave men who saved the world. The year is 1997. Endo Kenji and his friends are 37 years old. They've taken over family businesses. They've put on suits and gone into offices. They've sold out to corporate. They bow and scrape in front of managers. They're not particularly cool. In fact, they're kind of lame. There's not a lot of room for childhood dreams in the adult world. There are bills to pay. There are parents or wives or children that have to be fed and housed and looked after. It's not quite what they hoped for when they were kids. But it's fulfilling all the same. After all, if you couldn't keep your family from starving, what kind of calamity can you prevent? There comes a point in life where childish things must be set aside for adult responsibilities. Kenji and his friends are well past that point. Well, for the most part. There is still one of them who remembers the plot, the dreams, the secret symbols and the coded messages, who remembers the game, and still wants to play, even if the part he has to play is the villain. It turns out that there was little room in adulthood for explorers or astronauts or world-famous rock and roll guitarists. But the world still needs saving. Kenji and his friends have carried the weight of the world on their shoulders for the last quarter century. After all that work, they're not about to step aside and let it be destroyed now. 20th Century Boys is a manga by Naoki Urasawa, a story about a coming of age that goes beyond childhood. It is a story about the dreams of childhood and the responsibilities of adulthood, and about finding your place between these two things, constantly, not just at the moment when you are on the cusp of adulthood, but also as you move forward and as you constantly evaluate the relationships between yourself and those you have known your whole life. I first read this story when I was in college, and it has always had a special place in my heart. Kenji is a person who loved the arts, and as a person who loves the arts myself, I really resonate with his struggle to balance his responsibilities against his artistic dreams, which do very little to help him fulfill those responsibilities. I was also fascinated by the way the relationship between Kenji and his friends changed and evolved over the years. Very few Americans have the experience of growing up in a small, closely knit community where you will know 15 or maybe even 20 people your entire life, from grade school all the way until you are in your late 50s or early 60s. But the part that I always loved the most, and the reason I am back to read it again and share my thoughts about the story with you, is the fact that it is about people who find their way later in life. We are introduced to Kenji and his friends in the first chapter as both children and adults. And as adults, the story begins when they are 37 years old. Today is my 37th birthday. I'm not a super cool adult. Many of my childhood dreams remain unfulfilled. And while I cannot say that someone I knew as a child is planning to destroy the world and rule it with an iron fist, the strength of the narrative does not lie in the specifics of Kenji's battle. It lies in the story of men who carry the weight of the world in everyday responsibilities, who find that this struggle alone has conditioned them to stand up and fight for their homes and their families and their friends. Many times over the years, as I have struggled to do art and promote myself and make useful connections and failed over and over again, my mind has gone back to the struggles of Kenji and Acho and Mon-chan and Yoshitsune and all the other friends that I met in 20th Century Boys. And I was encouraged because the struggle was worthwhile. I still believe that. And I hope that in sharing their story with you, you will hold to that belief as well. So every couple of weeks for the next year, we're going to check in on this story. We're going to talk over Urasawa's work, his character work, his artwork, and the many wonderful stories of heroism in the day-to-day that he brings us. I hope you'll join me for it. But until then, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'll talk to you later.